Hello and welcome to the Central Lyon George Little Rock Football Podcast, brought to you by the CLGLR Quarterback Club. We're recording live from the Rock River Brewery in downtown Rock Rapids. Now, here are your hosts, former CLGLR head coach Toby Lorenzen, current offensive line coach Dwayne Postma, and current CLGLR head coach Curtis Eben.
Back to pass is Zach. Now he's going to tuck. He's going to run. He's got room right up the middle of the field. Cuts to the outside. To the race to the corner. Will Zach get there? Yes, he will. Zach Lutmer's got the touchdown.
Welcome back to this is our fourth and final episode of season 2 of the Central Lyon George Little Rock podcast. I'm your host, Curtis Eben, along with Dwayne Postma and Toby Lorenzen again. Our guests this week, two special guests to at least to our program, to me especially, also Coach Greg Schmidt and Coach Terry Van Berkum. This week, just a reminder before we get in, all tips from tonight, Dan Bandersy, the owner of Rock River Brewery Company, is going to donate those to the Central Lyon George Little Rock Quarterback Club. So, again, DeBrian, big tip before you leave. I appreciate it. Yep.
We got that already arranged. We got that arranged already, otherwise he doesn't leave alive.
I would invite you again, DeBrian, if I would be disappointed. So, going into this week, again, I want to appreciate Coach Schmidt coming up here from Sioux City and Coach Van Berkum for joining us in town here. But we're going to start off with last week's trivia question. What school year did Coach Schmidt start teaching at Central Lyon?
The summer.
Do I get a guess on this one?
Yeah, I didn't put the answer down.
Yeah, well, I don't know the answer.
You guys go
I'm
ahead.
going to say 1960. 71.
I'm going to say
69.
You go ahead, Dewey. Finish her off.
Nah, I know what it is now, but it's too late. Dang it, I thought I was going to nail it.
70.
You're correct. 70.
1970. Holy
1970.
smokes.
Yep.
1970.
3/4 of the people in this room weren't even alive then.
Yeah.
Were you?
My wife's dad worked for Wells and moved us up Memorial Day of 1970. And I coached baseball that summer and 8th grade football.
Oh, nice.
That's where we got our start.
Nice.
And when you got hired, Coach, was it social studies or American history or like that department, social studies in the high school?
Yeah, I had American history. I might have had world history, but you know, we had over 400 students then. And there was over 100 in every class. And in those days, kids failed. You know.
Oh, yeah.
No, they failed academically and were held back for that, you know. So we never graduated. 99 was the largest graduating class, but we always had a little over 100 students in your class. So you had 4 sections. We should have had 5, but we didn't have them. The rooms weren't big enough.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And Coach, correct me, but before you came to Central Lyon, you coached with an old friend of mine as well, Coach Wayne Hensel, who was my offensive line coach at SDSU.
One of the nicest guys you ever wanted to meet in your life.
Yeah.
I was at Beersford, and actually me and another kid, we lived in the basement of Wayne and Christine Hansel.
Wow.
And I coached there with him. And
Wonderful man, yeah.
we had spring football for 2 weeks out in the park. Everyone else was running track, but we were playing football. And we had great success.
Hell yeah.
8-1. The only team we couldn't beat, Burdell, Copeland, Canton Seahawks.
Canton, yeah.
They beat us 7-0. Our quarterback got loony in the second quarter, and we lost the game 7-0. and that's it.
Yeah, he's a good guy, really was.
Wonderful.
We're going to extend that question to Coach Van Berkum. What year did you come to Central Lyon?
I came to Central Lyon in 89-90.
89-90.
Yeah, I didn't coach football then.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that later. But
we were in town before. Before that, I managed Inga's clothing store.
Okay.
That's
so
how
what
I got
year
to
did you
town.
move to Rocky then?
My daughter was born here, 82.
Okay.
Abby was born here.
Sure.
So I left my wife in Clinton, and I moved here. Lived here a month till she moved with the 2 boys and Abby.
Inga's must have been generational then, right? You and then Nick.
Yeah.
So, multi-generational worker.
Man, you are old. You moved here the year I was in high school. It was my senior year.
Coach Legend all of a sudden feels young.
Yeah. The only time I felt young in 2 years.
We're going to continue our Mount Rushmores, and we're going to have the all-time special teams coordinator on. We're gonna go with kickers this week. So I'm going to let Coach Van Berkum start off with his Mount Rushmore of kickers.
Well, The Rock. The Rock was one of them.
Jamie Rakuzick.
Yep. And and then I also go with Kroll.
Carter Curl. Yep.
Carter Kroll. I would say, who else I'm drawing a blank. Who else we were talking about earlier? I didn't write them down.
Yeah. No. We kind of all 4 agreed on this, and I think it really. Yeah. There's 4. Go ahead, Coach. You can fill them in.
I had those first 2. I had Jamie Rakuzick. I got some stats quickly. Jamie Rakuzick, 88% extra point over his years. He still holds the school record, I believe, in the field goal, the 45-yard field goal, and then obviously he kicked at USF after that. I had Carter Kroll down too, and then I think the ones you're probably remembering,
Kurt Busch.
try to remember was Brett Bush.
Brett Busch, yep.
Brett Bush probably as far as he was kind of the Iron Man of kicking. Dewey, we were talking about it. He kicked 98 extra points, so he probably kicked the most extra points anybody we had. 88% field extra point kicker. 2 kicks, I remember. Obviously, he kicked the field goal in the state championship game.
That was a big one.
23-yard field goal in the state championship game.
16.
Yeah. And then he kicked a 28-yard field goal the next year against Eagle Grove at Spencer.
That was the difference.
And that was the only score in the second half for us, and that was the difference in the game. We won by 3 points. Brett kind of goes unnoticed, but Brett had and Coach Eben and I always do our Brett Bush imitations of our kicking, but he was probably the last straight ahead kicker we ever had. The old Fred Cox kicker from back in the days of the Vikings.
Old square toe he used to put on and run out there.
And then, we still have the shoe. It's actually in storage.
And then there's one other one. Hold on, Coach. There's one other one that he probably. I put him on there because you'll probably laugh. Everybody, some of you that were around, Shane, some of you guys I see sitting out there, Jeremy Clausen. Oh my gosh, Shane, you were the recipient of that. Joe was the recipient of that. You didn't know. None of us knew where the kick was going when Jeremy kicked it. Nobody knew.
Now we're talking kickoffs.
Including Jeremy, on kickoffs. Nobody knew where it was going.
It was a weapon.
Shane got fumble recoveries. Joe got fumble recoveries.
Knuckleballs.
Shane, were you the one that got one in the playoffs right away at the beginning of the game, or of the MOC game? We got one right away. And Jeremy, you never knew where he was going to kick it, but great kick. Is that what you were going to say?
No, that's exactly it. And that doggone thing would go like a hook. Come down, spin, and I can remember that MOC game. They were number 1 in the state.
Yep.
Yeah.
They'd beat us 19-7, the first district game.
Yep.
And we went down there, and offense got the kickoff. We scored. Jeremy kicked off, fumbled. We recovered. We scored again. We beat them 23-0.
Yep.
And
Game
boy,
over.
the Dutch were quiet.
Yep. They sure were.
So sorry, I didn't mean to take over the Mount Rushmore.
No, that's good. That's why.
Before we move on from the Mount Rushmore and talking about the field goal record, I believe that Carter on the Mount Rushmore might have a little something to say about that official school record.
He's got the unofficial.
He's got the unofficial school record.
He got screwed.
They didn't give it to him, but
Coach
there's people
Lupkus's brother-in-law's crew that couldn't decide whether the ball went through or not.
I think Mitch's brother-in-law was looking at it through some weird glasses or something, because people standing, even who was it we played, MOC?
Yeah.
Even their AD even said it was good, for heaven's sakes. And they
so how far was that?
That was
47, I think.
47, 48.
Okay.
But it was definitely.
It was, and to it was a
Yeah,
mess up by their point. That a crew member.
They were short a
They
guy,
were short a
yeah.
guy,
Yeah.
and
Made
all of
it
a sudden we
tougher.
came out and we kicked kind of rushed the field to kick
Yeah.
that field goal, and they didn't have anybody back. And they didn't even look to see if it was good because that crew member that they're missing is supposed to be underneath there. And we kick it, and they turn around, and they looked at each other like, we don't know if it's good or not. And so it was just one of those deals. But you know what, like Coach Postma, I think you maybe want to add one more to your list.
I was gonna throw Danny Schoeneman in there. You know, he was as talented a kicker as we had, and a pretty good team. So I put him in there.
Kicked a key one against Jefferson in the semis.
And against Jefferson, yeah.
We beat them, what, 11?
That wasn't a
10 to 8.
pretty
10 to
close
8,
game,
right,
yeah.
Coach.
Again,
Yep.
in your senior year.
Yeah, that was my senior year. You're right, Coach.
Like once again, a difference maker, yeah.
Yep.
Had some awful good, some of our multi-position guys,
Yeah.
C.J. Rose, Nick Lutmer, some of those guys are really good kickers, but they were all one-year kickers that, maybe didn't have the great stats, but we were always able to find good kickers. A lot of times we'd find a guy that would just kick off, a guy that would just kick field goals. We didn't have a lot of multi-use kickers.
And honestly, like now as time's progressing, and Carter Kroll was the first kid that I ever remember that actually went to kicking camps.
Yeah.
And
He was
Carter was an extremely good kicker, obviously, and that's why he's on the list already. But he kind of got things going, with now Matt Darren, and then you got Logan Koob, who is coming up. So you got multiple guys now that are doing the same thing, and you kind of, it's one of those positions that you don't value it enough until you actually need it, and then all of a sudden it's like, it's a position on the field that's really needed.
Carter undoubtedly had the strongest leg, I think, since I've been here.
Kind of like special teams coach. You don't value them until you need them, right?
Yeah, that's the truth. They had 100%. I'm gonna add,
Never get any practice time, but
you had a little argument about that every once in a while.
my Mount Rushmore, I'm gonna go with Carter, Brett Bush, Jamie Rakuzick, and then add that Jaron Wernsma, Jeremy Clausen, but probably go with Jaron just because of the number of touchbacks. I think that's a big factor in for field position is if you can get that team to start in the 20, that's a big deal. And just field position battle. And Jaron had quite a few touchbacks in his high school career, and that's a big advantage. As Coach Schmidt taught me throughout the years is every time it's a punt return for 10 yards or a kickoff return for 10 yards, it's the first down that you're given that defense before they even touch the field. So again, special teams is a big part of that, and and last year we struggled on our kickoff team. We found that out the hard way, but again, it's anytime you put it in the end zone, it's a big deal in high school football.
Yeah.
So
Pretty sure Jaron averaged almost 50 yards a kickoff. So
yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Especially if you get good coverage.
Right.
But Coach Schmidt, I'm going to put you on the spot here. We talked about our Mount Rushmore of kickers. We're going to talk about Coach Schmidt's best defensive players in all time. And I know you're going to hate this, but this is what podcasts are all about, Coach. So,
Coach, when did you start calling the defense? What year was that?
well, we got that coming down.
got that coming up.
okay.
Hold on,
Hold on,
coming up.
Coach.
Well, you got to go back. You got to figure out how far to go back.
Well, he can.
Come on.
If he has one of those guys on, he'll tell you what year they played then. So just relax. Read your sheet first, and then we'll come back to it. Anyway, Coach Schmidt, back to your.
I thought about that.
I bet you
But
did.
when Guts and Borglum created Mount Rushmore, there's only 4 faces on it.
Yeah.
And if I pick my defensive players, it's got to be 20-some. And I'm fearful there's so many good ones. So many good ones. Some of them are sitting in this room with me. But if I go through and someone's listening, they'd say, Coach, why don't you I just can't do it. But I got 4 defensive ends, I think. I got about 5 tackles, about 7 linebackers, and probably 10 or 12 DBs that, I'll put them up against anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just dang good ball players, and they were so easy to coach. In size, remember, I think the littlest one I'm going to mention,
Yep. I know who you're going to say.
wasn't he Nate Robinson?
Yeah.
You bet.
135 pounds listed. He wrestled at 130. I think they put a bunch of nickels in his pocket.
I would agree.
And I put him against any doggone big old lineman you got, and he's going to beat you.
He's gonna.
He's quicker than snot. You can't be quicker than snot.
Okay, to kind of go along with that, if you don't want to name them, maybe give each position what are the biggest things you look for when you were putting defensive players out there? Like say D tackle. Just start with D tackle, D end.
You know, these old college and pros, how fast you can run the 40 and how far you can vertical jump. I based on how fast I could get from someone to get from here to coach, even because that's where I think the game was played. Not 50, 80-yard sprints. Yeah, that's in there. But I always liked kids that were quick. If they were quick, I didn't care what their size was, and I had such good success finding those kids. You know, and it has to do with a lot of just central line. How many times you had a kid come up and, you know, Coach, I want to play. I don't care where you play me. I just want to play. Yeah. And that's the type of kid that we dealt with, you know. We didn't have this ego I see today that, you know, make a play and pound the chest, you know. Bunch of bull.
Yeah, no doubt. Amen.
So I can't name all 25, but.
All right, but you just know what
through
the years, and we talked, and that's why we started the Mount Rushmores, because there's been a lot of really good football players that gone through our program, and you know, and the thing that for us is that, and the reason we started this is because we talk about this every day at coffee or in the weight room or, you know, on our breaks or weekends or bus rides home, and that's what makes it fun and to discuss the history of our program, and you bring up names that sometimes you forget about, and it's
I could rattle them off, but what if I leave off a couple?
well, then that's part of life.
Yeah.
You want me to rattle them off?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, man, oh, man.
Just throw names out there, Coach, and even if
Okay, defensive ends that this guy sitting over here is one of them. You know who he is? Tell him.
Matt Sharp.
Ethan Voss. Yeah. Steve Van Wy. Yeah. Steve Van Wy is quicker than snot. You can't be quicker than that. Meester.
Tom Meester.
Tommy.
Deep tackles. Perrette. Dustin Drews, quicker than snot. Luke Stubbe. Scott Motter. Linebackers, Captain Curtis. Mike Klinkenberg, Roger Meyer. The quickest linebacker, Steve Krogman.
I knew that name would come up. Yeah.
Most underrated linebacker we ever had. Yeah. Jeremy Clausen was a good linebacker for us.
He sure was.
Probably secondary. I'll tell you what it starts with. The first two great communicators I had in the secondary were Shane Vogel and Joe Vanderzee. Those kids, teams used to run this stuff, and we just cut that down. We call an under, and we just took it away from them. We just took stuff away that was hurting us in the past, and those two started it. Eric Cleveringa, Tim Lamont, and then, God, the Boove, Adam Boovey, my gosh, you know, you talk about.
Special.
Oh, just Nate Herda. Nate Herda was what, 5'8", 5'9", what, 150?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, could he play corner? Man, he could play corner. I can remember this game we were playing Sioux Center, and they run this pitch and pull their left tackle, about 250 pounds. And he comes up to me and he says, Coach, he says, what do you want me to do in that pitch? I says, well, what do you think, Nate? He says, I think I'm going to go and take him out. I says, son. and they ran that pitch in the first quarter right down here in this field, and Nate came up there from that secondary and just cut that big fat tackle, boom, down, and the linebacker came in, 2-yard loss. They never ran it again. Nope. Luke Stubbe were playing MOC in the playoff, and they had that good trap play. And they ran that once, and Luke slanted down from that one tackle position and stuck that guy for about a half-a-yard loss. And we got hurt so much the first game on that tackle, that trap. They never ran it again. Poor coaching on their part, but that's okay. So that's and I hope I didn't leave.
I don't know what you had to worry about. You named basically all of our Mount Rushmores of all those guys there.
Well,
we spent some time talking about Krogman last week too.
We did.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time with
Yep.
Steve.
What a wonderful kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he sure was.
I can remember Toby and I sitting in my room watching we taped the scrimmage, and he made a play, and I can remember this, and Toby and I looked at each other, and we're just,
Yep.
Yeah.
we,
Oh yeah. I remember it.
Pound
Remember-
for pound,
remember it like
that
it was
kid was
yesterday.
special, boy. He only maybe 170 pounds.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I think he was
Just-
listed at 175, which means he was closer to
we,
160.
we lied a lot in those weights, didn't we?
You got that right.
Yeah, we sure did.
You know, we'll keep moving on here, and I think we answered a little bit of these questions already. But what year did you start coaching at Central Line George Little Rock in 1970, right, Coach?
Eighth grade for about 10 years.
So 8th grade, 10 years, okay. Coach Van Berkum,
I started in 1990. I didn't coach first year, but I got hired when Central Line and George Little Rock went to sharing.
Okay.
I was the
original.
original, so I had that on my.
Yep.
I always patted my back on that. I was with the longest sharing program, and I got hired by it. So
Yeah.
You worked with Ken Roseberry then that year too, didn't
No,
you? Start?
actually-
Toby did.
Toby
did.
Toby and Ken had the
Ken and I had sophomores. Yeah.
Yeah.
Terry.
I was with the freshman
Okay,
with Dan.
with
Bruce.
Dan. Yeah.
Yep.
I called defense, and Dan called offense.
Yeah, I called defense all the time. I worked with Ken.
Yeah.
Ken called offense.
Back in the days when you had about 4 plays you called on offense.
I always had 4 plays. I called on offense.
That'd be about it for me too.
At least 4 plays I liked.
Yeah.
But they always worked.
Right, Mitch? 28.
So, Coach Van Berkum, you started in 1990, and you went until, so how many years you been part of the football program?
27 years with Central Line George Little Rock.
Central George Little Rock. And Coach Schmidt, you started in 1970, and you went until 2009, I believe.
2008.
2008, yeah.
2008,
you graduated,
yeah. 39 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Couple years. Yeah. 39. Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
So you went to varsity.
About 1980, Dick had asked me 3 times, and I'm a stubborn German, and finally at the 3rd time I came up about, I think 81, something like that.
And you went to coach the high school then, the high school kids coach, or? Yeah.
I was coaching the sophomores then,
Okay.
and then, well, Dwayne was there about that
Yep.
time.
Just a
And
short way after
we're
that.
playing, we just got ripped on Friday night by someone bad. And we're walking off the field towards the old locker room. And about the 10-yard line, Dick turns to me and he says, Coach, you're taking over the defense starting now.
Yep. Because Coach Null was actually calling offense and defense, and I told him, I said, Coach, you can't do that. I actually encouraged him to do that.
You know, Dwayne, you're right, and I thank you for that. But I grew up with the coach, Max Hawk, and he became the winning. He was my first high school coach. That's where he started.
And that was Yankton then, or
No, at Scotland.
At Scotland first.
And he
yeah, right.
became the winningest coach in the state of South Dakota. He ended up his career 30-some years at Yankton. But in Dick, in those coaches like that, they were more control freaks than the Toby Lorenzens and the Kurt Siemens are.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just
I agree with
they
that.
handled
Yep.
that's the way it was. If they
Yep.
had an assistant, the assistant probably didn't know anything that was going on about football. He was there because he had to be.
Yep.
But and it took Dick a long time, but he did. And
it was the best thing could ever happen. And he was the first to admit it, of course, after it all.
And then he turned in, and I think he turned the kicking over to Terry later on then,
Yep.
and I think it helped him really.
Oh,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Or just take care of the offense. And Coach Lorenzen was, you couldn't find a nicer guy to work for because whatever you wanted to do, he supported you. He's the only guy I know that we could get killed Friday night and be Saturday morning, be as positive as he could be. And I know he was hurting. We were all
Outwardly.
hurting. But boy, he just had a knack of, how can I explain it? Bringing those kids back up to where they needed to be, and the coaching staff too, for that matter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good things. That's why we're talking about these things, and it's a good part of it. It leads us into some more questions. What kind of Coach Schmidt? We'll start with you. What kind of background did you have that made you want to coach football? Like growing up, or
I know you had quite a background in baseball too.
Yes.
Fill us in on some of that too.
So we start with baseball first, Coach, and then we're going to move into the other one.
Well, in the town I grew up, baseball was king. And I had because of my great teammates, I had a lot of success. We didn't have high school baseball at that time. In South Dakota, they had Legion baseball, but it was competitive.
Oh, yeah.
And below that, they had what they called junior. Well, we went to 4 or 5 junior tournaments. We won 2 of them. In the darn unfair thing about it, you only had 2 years of eligibility for Legion ball between my sophomore and junior and my senior. We won state titles both times. In the year I didn't, before me, they won it. So we were state champs 3 years in a row. And then you played the winner. We were a Class B school, but then you played the winner of the large schools. That was Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls, 60,000 people at that time, had one Legion team.
Oh, man.
And they beat us. And my last year, I got beat 2-1. I gave up a 2-run homer. I think about it to this day. One pitch. and the guy that pitched for them all 3 years was Jerry Kreider. And he won 19 games for the Minnesota Twins when Billy Martin was managing.
Oh, my.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
So how about your football? How about your football career?
Basketball, we didn't start basketball until the 5th grade. In football, we played football. Tackle, just to play it, but high school. In my sophomore, junior, and senior year, I made the team. I lettered my sophomore year. I didn't play much. My quarterback my senior year. Played DB my junior year. And we won something like 19 games and lost 5 the 3 years Max Hawk was there. And he was mad that we lost because our senior, he couldn't take losing. You guys are 10 times the coaches he were. But he was a disciplinarian.
He was a winner, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. He sure was. He's legendary in that regard.
And so that type of, what drove you into wanting to coach football, Coach, or what brought you to?
I think all of us when we were kids, and I think about all these football players that have come through Central Line, and when you're kids, what dominated my life? We had to work a lot, but sports, baseball. Then I like basketball because I could practice that with no one around, and then football. And to answer that question, I think it's your last chance to be a kid. Yeah. And I still miss it to this day. I think I could still go out and coach, but probably I can't. But you know what I mean? But up here, I still think I could. I don't know. But it gets in your blood, and it just doesn't. You say you retire from coaching. But up here, if I watch a high school game, I'm coaching.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want people around me clapping and rooting and telling. What would I be doing with that? That's why I look at it. I'm not saying I'm right, but that's just the way I am.
Yeah,
right.
That's what made you who you are, Coach, and that's why
right.
we all appreciate it. And so it's a perspective, like I said, what brought you to this, and just one of those paths that we cover. I'm going to ask Terry the same thing. What brought you into coaching, Terry?
About the same thing. When I was a kid, we played tackle football. I mean, it was tackle football in the neighborhood. You got together. We loved it when we got the first snowfall, and then that got me into junior high, and probably the one thing that motivated me the most was it was my senior year walking off the field at Northwestern. Les Hansen came up with me with another coach, Ken Eckness, and they had a big smile on their face and they were laughing, and they said, when you were a freshman, you put pads on, and we saw you in the pads, and he said, we thought you were going to get killed because I was about 98 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have a growth spurt. I was short, and Les Hansen takes credit for putting me out at wide receiver. And he said, we put you out there because we didn't throw the ball. And we knew you wouldn't get hurt. And that just, that kind of, just playing out there by myself. And then, eventually I just, I actually made started defensive end my junior year. And from there on, I, got to play under a great coach by Coach Corver. And that with dealing with Coach Corver and Mel Churchman, two of the premier coaches in this area.
That's for sure.
That really got me into coaching. So then I took a job in Clinton. I was the coach for the Catholic school. We had 4 junior high Catholic schools, and I was citywide Catholic coach there. And then got a bad taste of teaching over there, and got kind of it was a power struggle between some of the schools, and got out of coaching. And when I got back here, it just
never leaves you, did it?
No, it didn't.
Yeah.
I started doing some radio with Rich Rosti, and that got me back. And then when I got back in the school district and got hired, I actually went back 2 years and coached at Northwestern, and then got lucky to be coach under Dick and then Toby, and I have no regrets. I have no regrets of never being a head coach. I love my assistant position. I remember the day that Toby and I both applied for Dick's job, and Larry came and gave me the news, and I said, well, I'll go talk to Toby. And I walked in his office. I said, whatever you want me to do.
Yeah, remember that day.
And I'll tell you what, I just loved it. I loved coaching with Toby, loved coaching with, you guys, loved coaching with Mitch, and then the little short guy, Keith Van Beek, Keith and I really had a lot of good time, years.
I thought Keith was normal size.
But-
normal.
But I'm the same way, Greg, as far as the first year I had to sit in the stands, it was at West Sioux, and actually Kathy told me to leave because she said I was kind of lipping off to some of our fans because they were saying stupid things. I mean, so I go to a track meet, I go to a basketball game, whatever. I like to sit by myself.
Yeah. Keep moving on with some of the things that we talked about, but Coach Van Berkum, we'll start with you. What other sports did you coach throughout your tenure at Central Lyon? Obviously mock trial. We got to start with mock trial.
I know,
Come
of course. Well, mock trial, and I got to go back to one story when you guys were at the state football playoffs. Middle school mock trial team qualified for state, so I was there. I'm sitting in my room after I got my kids all set, and I get a text from you, and he said, so how's the scouting report? Did you get out and scout any of your teams you're going to compete with? And I don't know, okay. But yeah, I did the mock trial. I did do 1 year of girls' 7th grade basketball.
Okay.
And that's all I would give Elvin.
Yep.
That was a little rough. I had the manager cry in one practice.
Coach Schmidt, what other sports did you coach at Central Lyon?
I came here as a baseball coach, and our program was a disaster. The coach they had hired from Sheldon the year before never even had him check in the equipment.
Oh, my.
And so Dick was the AD then. He canceled our first 2 weeks so I found out, coaching at Central Lyon was mostly coaching but taking care of the field because you had no janitorial help at all. You had to take care of it. And they had a little Ford tractor parked over in your garage, dirt joints, and that go away. And that's what I used to bring dirt in and level it off. So I coached that for about 7-8 years in our facilities, and I drive out to the west end of Rock Rapids now and look at those baseball facilities, and I think, wow, That's really something
That's
compared
nice.
to,
Yeah.
if you talk to the kids that played in the early 70s, it was, and we had some very good ball players. Carl,
Oh my.
Milton Hellbrands,
Yeah. You bet.
real good kids. My problem was I couldn't keep our seniors. After they graduated, they didn't play that senior years. Real good ones, Kurt Busch, Mike Resky, Tom Roach.
Right.
Good baseball players, but it probably, I always thought, well, it's me, I'm not doing something right, but I don't know what it was. It just couldn't keep them out.
It's a changing world.
Yeah.
It was tough. I mean, it's just tough anytime.
And
these kids
I
start
was
working.
basketball coach for 3 years. The same, you know, and I coached basketball for 3 years before I came to Central Line, so I had 6 years experience coaching basketball. But anyway.
So that's kind of your extent of coaching, huh? So both of you guys, really, majority of your coaching was just football.
The last, about the last 20-some years was.
Clint and I coached middle school basketball and track.
Okay.
But
Just again, talk about classes. Coach Schmidt, you can just talk about what classes you teach throughout your. Again, we hit a little bit of that earlier.
American history. I got my master's in summers of 67, 68, 69, and 70. And I taught American history. And then the last 25 years, what a blessing I had. I used to have a class, Dwayne remembers, because he took it, RCJ,
Russia, China, Japan.
Communism.
It was one of my favorite classes. Yeah,
And it's a class, really, when you think it should be being taught now.
yeah, it should.
But it's not offered at the school system. And so then the last 25 years, I taught psych and social, which was really a blessing because it was a class for seniors. And the only kids I got in there were kids who got a B plus, or A's in history. So I got the cream of the crop of Central Line in there constantly. Just really great kids. And we did a good job with that class.
You did not have Coach even.
So I'm
those
assuming
classes
that
in
none of our coaches that are sitting here were in that class.
But anyway, Coach. But you know what I did?
I guarantee
you know
Coach
what,
Van
though?
Beek was in it.
You know what? I'm going to talk about a class that I took with you, Coach, and it was a May term class. You taught marriage.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
Well, I used to have that.
He had that as a regular class for a while.
I had that in my sociology class.
right. That
We
was part
married
of
the
it, yeah.
couples, and if we didn't
Yeah,
have a
right.
butch going,
Yeah, I was part of that.
2 boys might have married or
Yeah.
2 girls.
But that's normal today, Coach.
And we drew the names out of the hat of
Yep.
the income,
Yep.
and we had such a cooperation
Yes.
from the merchants.
It was an awesome class, an awesome section of the class.
They had to buy a car.
Yep.
They had to buy a home. They had to
Yep.
buy insurance.
Yep.
They had to budget their groceries and stuff. Their kids, they could have some.
Yep.
And I don't know how many times we had this and in those days, you just let the kids go. They come in, sign up. Okay. I'd make arrangements with the insurance and the car dealers and the bankers, and
We had
then
to
go down
We had to go talk to him. Yeah.
and go buy your car. And I can't remember how many kids come back. Mr. Schmidt, can we get a different car? We spent too much money on that car, which was part of the
Yeah,
lesson, you
right,
know?
right. That was part of the lesson.
And,
It was real.
and I don't know if they teach something like that, but that, call it your consumer education,
Yeah.
the ability to handle money. I think it's just, I don't know.
So
And personal finance was another course, right, Coach? That you had. I remember, or maybe it was part of the other class. I remember learning how to balance my checkbook. In your class.
yeah, a little different in today's world.
Yeah.
Coach,
So I'm gonna expand on this marriage class. So I took it obviously, and one of the things we talked about was dating in that class. It was before marriage. We just talked about dating, and you told us many things I remember because you told me like if you ever go on your first date, never order pasta because you just big old mess. And then you taught us how to like. For the first time in my life, like how to actually pick up pasta with a spoon. And that's why they give you the big spoon. I never knew what it was for, to be honest.
That's okay, 'cause I still can't do it today. If I have spaghetti, I want it at home. I want it at home where I can eat it the way I want to.
there you go.
And not on the spoon type of thing.
That's funny.
But so many little things like that. The table manners is what we
Yeah,
covered
absolutely.
there. And
but it was a big thing that's the first time in my life that I learned these things, you know, and then, you know, you asked me at that time in my life, you're like, you got a girlfriend? And I don't know if I might have had a girlfriend or whatever, or he goes, well, if you take her on a date, take her bowling. You told me to take my girlfriend bowling for the first date. Because you told me that you took a girl bowling one time in high school, or whenever it was, and he goes, watch her and see when she throws that ball. If she watches the ball go down and hit the pins, and she doesn't turn around before then, you know she's competitive. He goes, I took a girl, and she went bowling. She threw the bowling ball down the alley, and she turned around, and I said, that's enough. We're going home. And so
That's a true story.
yeah, and I still remember that, you know, and I often think about that, even with my kids now, as they do it. I think to myself, do they care enough to watch how many pins they knock down? Are they going to be competitive? It's a big deal in today's society.
Well, you know, I think, Coach, that's one of the things that coaches have in common. That word you meant, competitive. We don't like to lose.
Absolutely.
We lose, and we lose graciously. I can remember getting beat by Emmitsburg out here 7-6, and I was worried right at the game. I took a timeout, and I walked out, and I said, those Central line. I said, Central Line wins with class, and Central Line loses with class. Good job, guys, and walked off the field. Because I didn't want them to take a cheap shot at anyone, and they didn't, you know. Doggone it.
Yep.
Coach, you talk about Coach Schmidt's teaching classes. He was my favorite teacher. I think he knows this. And I don't know if you remember this specific example, but it was life-changing for me, and I don't know where I'd be today. I was bound and determined when I went to college that I was going to be a history teacher just like him, and I was going to be a coach. I wanted to coach, just like my favorite teacher. I believe it was halfway through my freshman year. I'm home for Christmas break, go to a basketball game, sit over there in the corner in the old gym where the teachers always sat. You know, that was always the teachers section, as we called it, and sat by Coach Schmidt, or he came to join me. And he was quizzing me on my college, how it was going and all that, and asking me what my major was. And I said, well, I'm going to be a history teacher. And I was pretty proud of that. And at that time, the best advice I ever got, and I took it, and to this day, I don't know where I'd be had I not, but he told me, Dwayne, I don't mean to discourage you, but if you're a history teacher today and you would apply for a job like Central Lions, he said there'd probably be 60 or more applicants for it. There was a lot of them out there. And he said, you should maybe consider something else. He could kind of tell, I think, that my dauber was down a little bit. And he said, well, what else do you like? What else? What is a big deal for you? And I said, well, I grew up on a farm. I'm a farm kid, whatever. Well, he said, why don't you be an ag teacher? Consider an ag teacher. You can still coach. You can do that. And by golly, I went back, and that start of that next semester, Coach, I don't know if I ever told you the rest of the story. Maybe, I think I did. But I changed my major, graduated with an ag ed degree, and lucked out. The Central Line job was open at the timing was all right. And Lord only knows where I'd be had I not taken your advice.
Thanks, Dwayne.
That's a long time ago, but it was good stuff.
You know, and I remember that's you in my room, and I said, stay here, Dwayne. We went over. Gene Schrader took the Des Moines paper. I went and got the paper, and I took the ads, and I said, look at the VOAG jobs available. Now try and find a history job available. That
was all part of that deal.
Yeah, you made a great decision, Dwayne.
Sure did.
You really did.
Yeah.
You made a great.
So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Terry, we are in a time restraint when we start talking about teaching positions. So if you want to start.
I taught tag. Tag, you're in.
Okay, all right, there.
Well, I started Central Lion fourth quarter of. I took over for Steve Steinhoff. Steve Steinhoff got a job with the FFA. FAA. And so at the time I was kind of looking. I had accepted a job in Des Moines, and I actually I was supposed to be in Sioux Falls, and they transferred me to Des Moines, and I hated Des Moines. So I came back, and I saw that this was open, so I went and I applied and got the job, and so I quit my other job and figured, well, hey, it'll be a perfect transition for me to go right into middle school social studies, and applied for the job, and Mel Wishman came up to me and says, we gave the job to someone else, Bruce Eckenrod. So Bruce got the social studies job, and so I went home thinking, oh, what am I going to do now? And then about an hour later, here comes Mel and Larry, and they said, we got a position we're going to make next year. It'll be we're starting a tag program, and we want you to take it over. And he said, or in 2 years, he said, but you're going to have to get a degree. So actually, I went back. I was a college senior with 3 kids, went back Northwestern. I was lucky enough to get everything done, and they gave me the job. And after that, with Lance Olson, we had some teacher cuts here and there, or people were quitting. I taught middle school lit with Dan Cruz. Taught some social studies with Bruce. I taught an exploratory class, and finally I ended up, when Eldon retired, I took over the world history. And, PE, that's right. PE with Tobe. I forgot about that.
I forgot the most important thing,
Yeah.
PE, right?
I taught elementary PE because I did have that. I got degrees coming out of.
I know. That's why I didn't want to spend all night.
It was great.
No masters,
It was
but-
great because the kids would have him, and he'd yell at him all the time, and they thought I was God, so I didn't yell at him.
You're going to be successful no matter what, Tobe. You're going to be successful.
That's right.
Well, I'm going to go into the next question, and this is like a vague question, because I think we talked a little bit about it, but start with you, Coach Schmidt. You coach under both Coach Nall and Coach Lorenzen, but what was the biggest difference between the two?
That's a good question. It's a tough question, too. I think there were 2 different individuals, really. Like I said before, Dick started coaching in the 60s when you controlled everything. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until, when, in the 80s?
Mid-'80s.
20 years later, where he said, okay, you take the defense, you take the kicking and stuff such as this here. Yeah. Well, Coach Lorenzen started coaching in the 80s, became head coach in 95, correct? Mm-hmm. And grew up with this thing. So Toby was great in delegating things, Yeah. And I think it made it easier for the Dwaynes and the Gregs and the people like that.
No doubt.
And I know we got a job to do, and he expects us to do it. Yeah. And I think my biggest thing I regret the most is not enjoying the victories. It seemed like Friday nights we'd go over to Coach Lorenzen's house, and I'd feel good. We won a game, and then I'd see the scoreboard. Jiminy Christmas, Sioux Center scored 42 points.
Yeah, right.
In my mind immediately, there went my enjoyment of the game. 42. They scored 42. I got to stop them.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think we really did a great job when that was in preparing. I can remember this guy calling me up. Greg, he says, Cherokee's on. We're going 3A. We got Cherokee on our schedule. I'd never seen Cherokee play in my life. Coach says, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I got some tapes. 3 days later, I get 4 tapes. And so I sat there and watched those tapes religiously, and I think that's the greatest change, really, from the Coach Knowles to the Coach Lorenzen, was video available. Jan and I, my wife, we went over to Belmont. You know where Belmont's at?
It's a ways.
You just as well be in Wisconsin.
That's the way
And we're scouting the game, and I take a tape recorder along, and I called a place, and that's what you had. Then you wrote them down and stuff like this,
Yep.
And boy, when those discs came out, and those tape, with a little VCR, I still got, my wife wants to know what I want to do with it. I still got an old VCR player. and I still got some tapes. And then he told me, that broke my heart when he said, well, they don't use those anymore, Greg, those discs. I wanted a disc of all our playoff games. We don't have them anymore. I got some. If I can ever figure out how to run the TV to use them again. But I think that's I think that's the biggest change in football today. The kids are bigger, fat. Well, they got more time. They don't have to go out and work the farm work that kids did. I can remember years ago, Stan Luck was a very successful businessman.
Yeah.
I think his folks let him go out for 1 or 2 sports. That's it, because you got farm work to do. And I can remember the first year we met in Dick Nall's basement, and they give this, and I think you still give it, this award for, I don't know if it's a legion, it's some.
Sportsmanship.
Yeah.
And you had to be out for 2 sports. In the first year I'm in Coach Nall's basement, we had a difficult time finding kids that were in 2 sports because the farm kids were expected to stay home and work.
Yep.
Absolutely, that's true.
And we didn't have wrestling then. We didn't have, the poor girls didn't have any sports.
Right.
Yeah, it's really changed. And I think Coach Lorenzen adapted very easily to this stuff.
And so what year did you start calling defense? Do you know exactly, Coach, roughly? Dwayne, do you remember, or Coach Schmidt?
I think it was 11 years before I called defense 11 years for Dick.
Okay.
And 14 for Toby.
I think it was 85 or
So
86.
I was there 7
Eight-
years.
83 or 84.
Yeah, somewhere in there, yeah.
Because 94 was his last year, so back up 11 years,
right,
whatever that be.
Yeah,
And that's the game where
Yep.
yeah, that
then
was
we
it.
I took over. We won the next 5 games that
Yeah.
year, and then we got clobbered by West Line in the playoffs.
That was 88, 89.
80,
Yeah.
no, that was 83, 84. So
Oh, okay, yeah.
Coach Van Beek was playing. He didn't know what year it was.
Well, Coach.
83 season, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Well, I know one thing. I've always used Lou Holtz's philosophy on that. You hire assistants that are smarter than you, and that's the thing I did with you guys. hire assistants that are smarter than you. Make you look good.
I played for Les Hansen at Rock Valley. He was the same way, like Dick. He controlled everything. I remember him working with the defense. Then now we're going to work offense. He'd work with the offense. He did everything.
Yeah, and I think that was, like you said, it was just different times and different personalities, and things are ran that way, and the expectations were that way.
You know, as a head coach, you're always going to be a control freak. But that's the hardest thing as a head coach is to give up some of your control, correct? And
It is.
It's tough.
It's hard
tough.
because.
But when you got good guys like the guys sitting in this room right here, in this whole room right here, it makes it a heck of a lot easier. I tell you what.
You know, it's like when you got out, Tobe. And Terry went with you, and Coach Schmidt won a couple years before that. But you look at the number of years, Dwayne. The number of years of coaching experience just in football alone. It's incredible. I think we added up multiple times. I don't remember the number, but it's
incredible.
It's incredible.
It's also a time where there were back in the early 80s and whatever before that, there was most every program had 4 coaches in their high school program. So it had to be somewhat more controlling just for that reason.
Correct.
That was a big part of it. And then we expanded, especially when we joined with George Little Rock.
Good point, Dwayne.
So that was a big part of it too.
When Kurt's talking about years of experience, Coach, I've talked to these guys about it numerous times. I would put our school, our program up against anybody as far as the years of experience of keeping the same staff or the same core staff. It doesn't happen very often, and it's because of you guys. Yes.
But just the advance, I remember going with Toby to
Saturday
Emmitsburg.
mornings.
Emmitsburg to scout.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And I'd be drawing up the plays. Toby'd be talking to the old tape recorder. And, now you guys got Huddle. You just send the tapes. Or we'd be meeting them when we had to play Missouri Valley.
The year we played was 88. We were getting to play Emmitsburg in the playoffs, or the Hables group.
88.
Yep.
We were scouting, and we were on our way home from scouting that day before that game, and Dan Cruz stops on a hill. We jump up, and we're trying to get the radio to work because we want to hear the score of the game because we're on the way home.
That's how times have changed.
Times have changed, but you went through 16 millimeter to VHS to DVD, and you never ever got into the Huddle part of it, did you?
No.
Yeah.
Just push button.
Yeah.
I think, Dwayne, when you played, didn't Dick
Yeah.
take the film to Sioux Falls
Yeah.
to get it
It was-
developed?
yeah.
And
That's
it
the old-
wasn't not a good film.
No,
I
it
mean,
wasn't.
It was.
That was the old 16 millimeter, I believe. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Put it on
yeah,
the
he
reel,
did.
and it went through the machine.
Yeah.
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 Well, Coach, I'm going to keep moving here. Probably going to, and I hope who was the most frustrating / hardest to get through to a kid to coach through those years? And it doesn't have to be so much that maybe it's one of the best players, but it wasn't easy to coach. Anybody in your mind stick out? And it might be 3, 4, or 5 of them. I don't know.
I always prided myself on my secondary play.
Yep.
I don't remember, probably I'm wrong, I don't remember a kid catching a touchdown pass wide open in my life. Did I? I don't
No,
think so.
I don't think so. I can't remember one.
And I'm not going to pick out any individual, but what,
You can.
no. What would happen occasionally
Shane's right there if you want.
is,
Mitchell's right there, too.
no, Mitch didn't do it. But every now and then you got a secondary person that tried to play, and I used to use, don't try and play God. Don't try and get up there and stick your nose in where a linebacker. You're going to give up. And we had it happen. The game I can think of that I thought we got beat by Emmitsburg, and I think we were the better team. It's the only time I ever felt that we were the better team, but we got beat because it was my fault, because I didn't discipline that secondary well enough. Yeah. And I can look at the tape, and we got safeties coming up there, and the fullback's going through, and he just waiting to get hit, and geez, all of a sudden, hey, there's no one in front of me.
Coach, I remember the exact same game, and I feel like it was my fault because we had an offensive lineman missed an incredibly key block that particular game. I get what you're saying. I really do.
But that game really hurt, and it just, I don't know. Here it is, 20-some years, 25 years later, and I can recall that game just like that,
And it's not so much that I'm asking that it's, that situation, but I'm asking like more of a funny type situation, the fact of who's been somebody that was kind of frustrating to coach, but yet kind of enjoyed coaching him because he was frustrated, maybe bullheaded, maybe / didn't listen to you, but was just an extremely good athlete, or somebody that rings a bell to you.
Well, you did.
Told you.
I knew that was coming. In fact, it's so.
You set yourself up for that one, Kurt.
I'm fine with it.
Curtis he came out as a sophomore, and it was obvious he was a gifted athlete. And where do I play this guy? And I started out in the safety, I believe. And I could see that wasn't going to work because he was. And so what I ended up, I put him where he could do the best good for the team and the least damage. I put him at a little linebacker, and he uses it. I never used the term in my life till he came on the staff, downhill. But he could go downhill like you never seen before. And then I think his senior year, I moved you to our one linebacker, which to me was the most important linebacker position because most teams are right-handed.
Coach, actually, that my senior year, and you let me play both sides, 1 and 9, depends on the strength. And that flexibility, I think, for you at that time was like kind of unheard of because you were so disciplined on what you did. But you go, yep, you can go to 1 or 9 linebacker and you can play. And we were watching tape a while because we uploaded all of our tapes from the previous years, like 98 and 99. They're all on YouTube now.
Oh.
And so if you get bored sometime, you can go on YouTube and watch games. But Gino
gets you hooked up on that. Don't worry.
But the thing is that I was telling Coach Cruz, and I said to him, I go, I think I got benched in this game. Because I go, they threw a screen early on, and I was nowhere to be found. I was chasing the cheerleaders on the other side of the field, and you pulled me off, and you just chewed me out for not staying home. And later on that game, and I think we might have missed it because later on they run a different play. Everybody's away, and I'm still backside, just sitting there like, I ain't leaving. I'm staying. So, no, it's one of those things that you learn to, the trust. I think the trust factor and the discipline factor and things like that you entrusted in us as players, that's a big factor. And we can talk about that even later. I know that's what we got coming down here, but it was a big factor for us. So,
I want to ask you one too. Do you remember Sheldon it'd be in the early 2000s talking about a hot dog? If I needed a hot dog.
What was your saying, Coach, on that one?
What was your saying on that one? Dan Vanders, he knows what I'm talking about with that one.
I'll tell you what happened. We're playing Westwood of Sloan, and what was the corner?
Darren Overman.
Darren Overman misses an interception and starts doing push-ups.
Because we were doing them in practice, they were doing that. They saw it on TV.
And Sloan was bad, by the way. Folks.
And I get him over the game, and I says, if I want a hot dog, I'll buy one. and then Toby came up to me and said, Coach, it's not his fault. He was taking care of the secondary that week, and if they missed an interception, he was having them do push-ups.
No, I'm gonna turn that on Chris Keel. That was his fault on that. I had nothing to do with it.
So then I put Overman back in the game, and everything was kosher after that. Yeah,
that was funny. I always remember that one.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you used blinders in practice on somebody? Do you remember that?
I think
that was more Coach Eben.
That was definitely me.
That was Coach Schmidt was all behind it, but it was Coach Eben.
Okay.
So I'm the one that put blinders.
Brian
on.
Caparis.
Okay, with Brian,
put blinders on him before the.
We played the Solon that year, and I put blinders on Brian Caparis going into the gym.
It was a championship game year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a championship game, and they ran trap
because you didn't want him looking at anything but.
So the big thing that we talked about all week and prepping for that weekend, prepping for it was. Brian can't be worried about all this motion and everything else. He's got to worry about that fullback. And so that week in practice, I came back and I duct taped cardboard on the side of his helmet.
Remember that, Coach?
And so he could not. He's like a bull with blinders on. He couldn't see anything besides the quarterback in front of him. But speaking of the dome, I think the one thing that I remember when I played because I returned punts, and I think a lot of people remember is what did you bring with you to the gym? With you every time they explain punt returns. If you don't remember,
return to the ball bouncing on the turf.
Yeah.
Oh.
You brought a.
What'd you always bring?
What'd you bring? You brought a golf ball. Do you remember that?
Something like that.
And you drop it on the floor. And what did that golf ball do? You just roll down the floor. And that was your example of punt. You let that ball hit the floor in the dome. That ball's going to keep rolling. Yeah. And that was an example like even to this day, we still use that example because of that reason. And it's an example that obviously I learned from you, but it's a.
That's interesting because I think, luckily, we were the first team around here to have guys fair catch. And I remember, a lot of times Dick or even Toby get someone back into their speed, and I thought, I don't care if they got any speed or not. Can they catch the ball when everyone's around you yelling, drop it, drop it, drop it? Can you catch that ball? And boy, we had great success doing that. Kids catching the ball. And then it spread, and I noticed now all the teams are doing it, but they didn't do it They didn't do it for a few years. And
By catching the ball, that saved us a lot of yards.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
The big thing you also taught was giving with the ball. Like you always wanted to give with that.
Oh, yeah.
You always, and that was a point that was something that was.
And he was
taught.
one of the good ones. I can remember him breaking a big one against MOC down there.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I thought one of the most perfect games I've ever been associated with. Curtis's, I think, senior year, we beat them 28-0.
We did.
They had a good team. They had a running back that was over 1,000 yards, a good fullback.
Very good tight end.
And I remember Kurtz bringing a punt return. He should have scored, but he didn't.
I tripped over Matt's feet. He was slow.
But that was, yeah. Well, we did a good job on those special teams.
Yes, we did.
Return.
And there we go. Did a good job on those special teams.
And to this day, I agree with you. Well, I'm gonna ask Coach Van Berkum. Do you have anybody in your mind that was really frustrating and hard?
There was one,
Yeah.
and you know, at our level, you don't, kids are going to make mistakes, but this kid would never want to practice. But in game time, Corey Kempema.
That's a good example.
As Dewey would say, he's a gamer.
He's a gamer. But the classic part is right now he's coaching my grandson. So I've gone to watch some games, and I've watched him holler at my grandson. And after the game, I'll look at him. He says, "Sounds familiar, doesn't it, Coach?" Yeah. And he's so competitive. He's become a great friend of mine, and he's become a heck of a basketball coach at Hinton.
I watched their game, and he was assistant coach. And you're right, boy.
But he
sure has changed from high school.
Oh, he's so competitive.
He shows everybody grows up, huh?
And he'll say, "Boy, I wish I would have been." And he goes, "Yeah, I wasn't all into practice. But boy, he makes those kids run now. Oh, cow!" He'd be the one.
He was a frustrating kid to coach, I'll tell you.
Boy, he had great hands.
Amazing.
He's one of the few high school kids I could see going catch the ball.
Yes.
Like they catch it today.
Yeah.
He was way ahead of his
He
time.
was way ahead.
We didn't throw the ball, but we didn't have to.
Is that right?
Coach Schmidt, who is one of your most favorite kids to coach, and why?
Too many of them.
It's hard. I get that.
Every season was a different season.
Yeah.
And every season had different personalities in there. Your team. I don't care if, we had 2 losing seasons that I coached. In 92, we were 3-6, and then that 1 year till we about
05.
we were 4-5.
Yeah.
And all the other times you won, but I think you approached every season the same. I remember Dick years ago saying, I said, "Coach, how do you work this?" Well, he says, "I look at the schedule and I see the teams that I know we're going to beat or should beat. And then the teams that could beat us, and I always figure if we beat one of those teams, we've had a successful season." Well, I never looked. I thought we should win every game. That's why I tried to prepare. And I think, I don't think you can ever over-prepare. And you need a support staff like we had here with our coaches. I don't remember our coaching staff ever getting in an argument. Did we agree all the time? No. But I think we just seemed to get along, and I know we didn't agree sometimes on the stuff, but we worked it out. And then you got to have a supportive wife too. I'll tell you that.
Amen.
I don't care. The time you put in. My mind started on Friday night when I saw that scoreboard, and I had to have my stuff ready by Monday's practice. It's the way Coach set it up. We went over the defensive plan, the offensive plan, and Tuesday was mostly defense. Wednesday was mostly offense, and I figured I had about 2 hours that week on the field. I got to be ready. I always think if a young coach getting into coaching thinks that Friday night, then Saturday I can go watch Iowa or Minnesota play, and Sunday I'm going to watch 3 NFL games. He's in the wrong line of work. You got to be preparing for that team by Monday. And Coach Van Beek was so great. Of course, he's got that technology that I don't have a brain for. And we would diagram. And Sunday, when I came back on Mondays, and the pass plays would be in my, all the pass plays that team ran, so I could give the coverage, hand it out to the players. It was just great. But look at the staff we had and the people we had doing things like that for you. And then we got the playoffs. Then I got Coach Van Beek to coach the defensive line. Just, where's what I want? And he did it. He did a good job with that D line.
Yep, still does.
You bet.
Yep, I 100% agree with you, Coach. Terry, you have a favorite player, coach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being special teams coach, that's the kind of the route I went.
Yeah,
Matt Willinga.
Yeah.
Matt Willinga didn't play a lot, but I'll tell you what, he was back then we called them kamikazes. And his job was to go down when they formed that wedge. I told him, your job is to go down and destroy it. I don't care how you do it. And there, I don't know how many games he'd be flying down there, and he'd be about five yards from them, and he would leave the ground, and if there were 3 guys, he'd try to take them all out. And he
wasn't very big either.
And he would come limping off or, holding his side. But I'll tell you what, he got the kids pumped up.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times
That's
where
awesome.
he'd destroy it, and we had 4 other guys come and make the tackle.
Yep.
Coach, one thing just in my mind when he's talking about that, all these statistics, we live in a statistical world. We got more information than we need by a long shot. But you know what? In football or any sport, but especially we're talking football, no one's come up with a way to measure a kid's heart.
Yeah, amen.
And you got those kids with a big heart. That's all it takes. I mean, they're going to do things that they don't think they can do and do them right. And if we ever found a way to measure that, you're a head coach now, you know what that's like. You had it as a player coach, but
I completely agree with you, Coach. I think that's something even today that we struggle with because I think that heart part of it, what you're talking about, is you could have 20 guys on the team before, and now you're down to like 3, 4, if you're lucky, maybe 5 guys on your team that have that, like we were talking about. And I think and then it's the way the world is changing.
Yeah.
And then part of it is we as a coaching staff have to figure out ways to bring that out of people and figure that out, or if not, create that.
And we don't have a system to do it. It's
Right.
If we knew this, shoot.
We talk about this very thing a lot, don't we, guys?
We do. Because, and that's something that I think the big difference is, the 90s to the early 2000s to the current day is exactly that. Is that competitive, like, don't care what you do, can't lose a game, and now kids are in a comfort zone, and no matter what it is. Yeah, and I'm a parent of today's kids, and I get that, but kids are spoiled in the fact that they don't have to fight for anything. They just get whatever they get, and my son's one of them. I'm at because society makes it so easy, and I met with prom committee this week, and they asked me, like, what do kids need today? And I don't know. They have everything. Unless you're going to buy them a new car. But, I mean, that's literally the only thing that they don't have. The kids don't get excited about TVs, fridges, watches, iPad. I mean, they have everything.
That's a good point, Curtis. And to take that further, I think one of the things that happens that I've noticed, and I noticed it in the late 90s starting, is so many of the parents want to live their sports career through their kids and have their kids have the success that they didn't have. And today, you got not just their parent, but their grandparents out there. And I think it makes it harder in the coaching profession because of that type of thing. And, you send them to this camp and you send them to that, and this travel team and that travel team. Well, I don't know if that's the answer. I know I sound a little old-fashioned, but I am. But I think I'm right too.
No, I agree.
Yeah, the way to find that, I think I look at the success of Central Line, and I think how many kids we had that played better than that God wanted them to play because they had that intestinal fortitude, that drive, and how they got it, I don't know, but they got it.
Yeah. I call it the killer instinct, and that's what I use
Yeah,
for terminology.
okay.
Is just the
Whatever
killer
it
instinct
is.
because they no matter what they put it out there on the line, and today's it's just that we're losing a little bit of that, and you brought that up, and I'm glad you did because I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Terry, go back to Terry here a little bit, but Terry, one of the guys that I thought you had probably the most fun coaching, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, was the Georgian, the kid that was a foreign exchange student that came out and kicked and
Came out and kicked. And
Terry, were you a little bit scared of him?
what do you mean?
Because he did want to punch you one day.
I know he wanted to punch me. I
But
know.
were you a little scared?
But
Terry, were you a little
I was
scared?
not a little bit scared. He would have knocked me down, but I'd have got up. But I'll tell you what.
Because you did call him a Russian.
Oh, I still do.
Yeah.
He's from the country of Georgia.
He's from
He does not like
Arch
Russia.
enemies to Russia.
and I still call him the Mad Russian. In fact, I commented on his Facebook page the other day. I said, "How you doing, you old Mad Russian?" And I always get a response, "Well, you dumb old Dutchman." And he's a classic.
He was fun.
He contacts me every so often.
Do you ever remember?
He did send me a tape one time of him playing some flag football over in Georgia.
Nice.
Fullback.
Do you remember the two kids from Germany that showed up for practice that when they were going to kick? And,
Yeah.
And you sent them out that one day.
We put them out in the rain. It was in the rainy, windy day, and they weren't there the next day.
A little bit later, we looked over there and they weren't around. Yeah. So maybe that's the last time we saw them.
Terry, I have to admit, Coach Schmidt talked about my sophomore year. I remember I was down practicing sophomore grade, and Coach Schmidt goes, "Curtis, get up here!" And I was half scared running up to the varsity field because it was a lower level. I was half scared running up, but at the same time, I thought to myself, I don't have Terry as a coach anymore. I better work my ass off.
I wasn't that bad.
And so the rest is history.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk a little bit, again, just memories of coaching. But Coach Schmidt, we'll start with you. What was the best game you've coached in when it comes to competitiveness? Like looking back on all the years, and we've had some dog fights. Any game that just truly sticks out to you? Just maybe as from a defensive standpoint or from you coaching one that you can.
Boy,
I know this ain't easy, but.
Well, those two Harlan games.
Oh yeah.
Because, God, you're taking on, the premier program in Iowa. I don't care what class you're in.
Absolutely.
And we beat them up here, and we play them in that semifinal. Our '98 team. God, we had a good team in '98, son of a bucket. And we're down. We had a 70-yard touchdown run called back
Early
on a
on.
phantom holding.
On a phantom holding. We talked about that last week.
And we're down 7-0 in the fourth quarter, and we got the ball. I can remember going up, Coach, I said, "You got 6 minutes left. We got enough time." We're down 7-0, and lo and behold, they blocked 2 punts. And they covered them on the 2 or 3 yard line and scored. Yeah. So it looked like they beat us 19-0. Yeah. It was a 7-7 game.
Yeah,
really,
that's exactly right.
Yeah, we talked about it last week.
Much better game than the final score.
And I talked to the Harlan coach down at USD, the defense, and he says, "You know what?" He said, "Of all the success," he says, "we had 3 great teams, outstanding." He says, '98 was one of them, and we should have tied that '98 game with a good official call.
We were right there.
Yep.
Absolutely, 100%.
Spent a lot of time on that last week.
It's one of those games we don't ever forget, do you?
And the other team I've always respected, I never disliked them, I respected them, was Westline, because they knew what we were going to do, we knew what they were going to do, and both teams just left it on the field when we played them. It was. I think it's one of the great rivalries, and well, it's the greatest rivalry in this area. But yeah, I've always respected them. And like I said, they knew what we were going to do, and we knew what they were going to do, and there was never any surprises in that game. It was just who blocked and tackled the best that game.
Yeah, and over the years, there's probably not two, over all these years, probably not two coaching staffs that respected each other more either.
And you know, Toby was mentioning this, and Curtis, in the length of the coaches on the staff.
Yeah, same, yeah,
Look at the length of the coaches.
yeah. Very similar, yeah.
Jay's been there. Some Snyder took over that program. He was there like 3 or 5 years, and Jay was his defensive coach.
Yeah, that would have been Daryl Hugeveen took it over.
And then he
Jay,
went to that place down south, got a big salary.
Yeah.
That Boer plant or something, you know.
Yeah, down in
Cement plant, you know.
down in Nebraska. Or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah.
And I remember Dick saying, he said, Schmidt, he says, they'll never running that offense. They're still running the same offense today.
Yeah.
You power I and offset the power I, and they run the ball, and run the ball.
Yeah.
Terry, for you?
Well, you know, the Harlan games stand out, but one of the games that, you know, that really stands out for me, it was kind of, and very enjoyable, was Okoboji. When we went there, we had Mitch and CJ on the, were my two returners at the time. And Okoboji came, you know, we ran 3 plays, punted, they came right down and scored. They kicked off to CJ, and CJ returned the touchdown.
Yep.
You know, we kicked off, they went right down and scored again, and you know, we got talking. I pulled the kids out, and we had been working on this one kickoff return with a little reverse because we had Mitch for speed, and I said, you know, they're not going to kick to CJ. So I said, Mitch, you just lead up, let CJ hog it, and we're running that reverse. And yeah, lo and behold, next play, boom, there went Mitch all by himself. Everybody's over on the one side, but that game was became a dogfight. I mean, we knew they were going to be kind of tough, but man, it just was back and forth, and you know, that was kind of one of the memories that I really.
No, that's awesome. Coach Schmidt, gonna be another tough question because you've been a part of a lot of great football years. All the years we talked about, what was your most memorable coaching year?
Golly.
Don't worry, I'm gonna put Coach Lorenzo on the spot here down the road yet, so you're not. I get you.
I'd say all 25 of my coach of defense really were very memorable years. I can't pick and say, yeah, I know we won a state championship, but 4 times we got beat in the finals. And that bothers me to this day, because I don't know. I just looked at, when I started the season, I just looked at the season, and I always felt I grew up with an inferiority complex. I still have one to this day. Why, I don't know, but I do. And I always felt all these coaches are smarter than me and know more than me. But if I outwork them and prepare twice as much as they do while they're going to watch Iowa and stuff, and I'm doing my stuff and preparing, we got a chance. And that's the way I approached it. I don't care if we were 3 and 6, 4 or 5, or gee, I think the last year we ran off a lot of 13 and 12 and 1s, didn't we? Something like that.
Yep.
But
Well, I know one thing. There's a lot of guys in this room right now that play defense for you, and by Wednesday, when our scout team came out into an offensive set, pretty much every defensive guy here knew what play was going to get run. I mean, there was nothing that was left for anything to be thought of with Coach Schmidt. He took care of everything.
The best was when they're in this formation, 39% of the time they will run this play.
Yep.
And you were right.
I can remember one time, Terry, you running the scout team. And you know, there's another thing. Toby did such a good job of creating these scout teams, and I know you still do it today, but that wasn't done in the past. Toby's the one that got that really good scout team going. And I can remember things such as that, but I remembered Terry and Jerry Pileski, how many thousands and thousands of passes they threw to against my secondary. They had tests for them. And I remember Terry running the scout team, we're playing Rock Valley. And I know this, we beat Rock Valley 2 or 3 years that we had no business beating that team. They were better than us. 2 kids, 6, 7, 8 wide receivers, play basketball at South Dakota State. Quarterback plays 3 years at USD. And Terry, I remember him looking at that, and they got this fullback that goes to Northwestern and had a great career. Terry says, 42 times? They ran this off tackle play 42 times.
Yeah.
Boy, I'll tell you, did we stuff that son of a bucket. I always thought if you took away 2 or 3 of their 2 or 3 favorite running plays, and now Curtis tells me they run about 100 now.
Yep.
And take away 2 or 3 of their favorite pass plays, we have a chance. But now it's changed. You know, they're throwing that ball all over the place. I still think you got to run the ball to win.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know, talking about, I think you maybe answered this already, Coach, but who's an opposing coach that you knew would always be difficult to coach against, no matter the team level or skill? Like West Line. Anybody else?
Emmitsburg was always, you know, very, very well coached. I think those 2 in particular. And I had a lot of respect for that Toby, the Lamar's coach.
Jim Boyd.
Jim Boyd.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people didn't think of him, but son of a bucket. How many games we played him that it was a 1 touchdown.
Tough games, good rivalry, boy.
And they had a quarterback that if you let him go, you'd never catch him. And they ran option football, which that's what we played when I was in high school. Option was easy for me to defend because I knew what to do on option.
Sure.
And boy,
They had athletes, and we've talked about that. We developed a really intense rivalry with the Lamars over a number of
years,
about 10 years, maybe not quite. Yeah, tough back and forth. I think the good guys won more than the bad guys.
Oh, yeah.
Which is normal,
Yeah.
but they were tough, and and that was Jim Boyd's teams.
boy, they had good athletes.
Yeah, they did.
They did.
Yeah, and Lamar's never did. You know, Lamar's being a Lamar's guy. I know that they never ever had anything nice to say about Jim Boyd. But ever since Jim Boyd has left, they've never been a factor at all.
Nothing.
Yeah.
That's
Good
right.
point.
Good point.
Terry, I skipped you there a little bit, but your favorite coaching season?
I had 6 of them.
Well, I said favorite coaching season.
I know. I had 6 of them. 6 with my 2 oldest boys and 1 with my grandson.
There you go.
There you go.
I can live with that then.
Yeah, we can deal with that.
Those were memories.
You know, I was really thinking Coach Schmidt was going to say 1999 for us. But I mean, maybe I'm a little biased.
Boy, not the way he talked at Toby's house all the time.
But I tell you what, but 1999, our defense won games. So I'm just saying, I thought it was going to be the favorite, but I may be biased, Coach. I mean,
That was a very overachieving team, our 99.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, we're very proud of
considering we
that.
had like 2 defense starters returning on.
How many?
I think we had 2.
2 starters returning.
Yeah.
And
Trent
Coach Schmidt,
three,
I think
actually.
you'll agree with this, Terry,
Wyatt.
too.
4.
Over my time, there were very few players that we ever had who could will his teammates to win games. And I think Curtis was that guy. I think he might be maybe the only one that I've ever been involved with coaching that could do that. And I think that season he really brought that out. We won a lot of games. We just outlasted them, and I think Curtis had a lot to do with that season. That was a special year because of the way we won a lot of games.
Is that the team we beat? Who was that team we beat to get to the Dome?
Clear Lake.
Yeah,
Clear Lake, 2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
yeah,
Oh, God, yeah.
unbelievable.
Did you chew out in the huddle ever, Curtis?
That chew out in the huddle.
And when you were captain of that team, you weren't called
Honestly,
Captain
did ya?
Curtis.
You know, we reviewed that year, but I honestly, it wasn't. I think we all had a common goal, and we knew what that goal was, and it was just an accountability thing, like letting down, and that's that killer instinct factor. You know,
Yeah.
talk about Nate Robb and Matt and Josh, and you know these guys sitting here, and it's fun to watch. But it was just a factor like nobody wanted to let anybody else down, and the drive to just never stop. And that's why I think defensively we were so talented. Not talented, I shouldn't say that. Our willingness to, our drive to never lose. Like it didn't matter what happened. And that's where, for us, it was.
Didn't Eric Clevenger play in the
Yeah.
semifinal game with
hand.
a broken hand?
And
they
Tim
threw
Lamons had a torn ACL.
MCL.
Or MCL.
Just a bunch of tough kids, man.
And boy, those were an outstanding one side of my
Yeah.
corner and safety. They were really good.
Yeah.
Curtis, you know.
And we talk about the speed. We've talked about speed before, but the speed of that team up front was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, Josh Bathke was amazingly fast, but no, I'm just kidding.
Fast enough, right, John?
We had all the fast guys, and we had the big,
Josh,
big
you
man
only
in the
take
middle
care
there.
of 2 gaps, and you did your job right,
You
buddy.
got that right,
I
buddy.
love it. That's what
Do
I
you
got that,
guys,
buddy.
do you guys know this about that Jefferson game? They scored, fumbled the snap on the extra point, threw a pass, and completed it.
That's right.
You know who caught the pass? Number 34, the snapper. It was an illegal, and I never caught it.
We'll have
And
to
you know, and
I
that
don't
could
think I
have
ever knew that myself.
check that
and
out.
that could have been we could have got beat 7-6.
'Cause that was a tight
And
game.
so that was a game that
That you
again,
scored on
I can personally reflect on just playing under these coaches that they were moving the ball down us, and obviously late in that game they had a huge tight end. Like the guy was like 280. He's like
can
kind
remember.
of fatty, but he like sat himself up and moved himself throughout the field, knew the spots to sit in, and he caught a big pass against us, and you call a timeout, or somebody called a timeout, and you go, we need to stop that tight end. And I remember looking at you and be like, Coach, he won't catch the ball again. I got him. We're not going to catch it. The next play, they throw a pass, he catches it. And we call a timeout again. They call a timeout, and for the first time in my entire life, I did not want to go and see you. I could not bring myself to face you eye to eye, knowing that I told you that I wasn't going to let it happen, and it happened. And I remember walking the sideline, and you go, well, that just happened. I'm going, and it hurt me, and I still remember to this day, like when he caught it, my fear wasn't that we were going to lose a game. My fear wasn't that he caught it. My fear, when I heard the whistle blow, I had to walk to the sideline and face you. Like, that was my fear. and not that you're going to yell at me.
And that guy was 6'8", wasn't he?
He was a monster. But
And
it wasn't.
I remember you there, and they threw the ball. They had a heck of a quarterback on that team.
Yeah,
I'll
they
tell you.
did.
And he threw that. You were right there, but you were.
It was like going to confession.
Yeah.
I was like, I just failed in life. I let him down. But
And you know, since we got a lot of older people, don't forget, we ran primetime double switch when they were kicking the game-winning field goal.
That's right.
And next thing you know, Captain Curtis
Captain
blocks
Curtis
it.
makes the play.
We end up recovering at the 50-yard line. It's over.
Game over. Yeah.
You got that right.
well, that's why I'm just lucky enough to live through it and talk about it, and it's what an experience, Coach.
Well, you
God dang
broke
it.
the big run that about a 55-yarder. Didn't you just score?
Yeah.
And then we recovered a fumble. Danny Schulman kicked the field goal to give us 10.
Yeah.
So
It was tough game, but the good guys won.
Again,
They were a good team.
defensively, we were just so good.
Yep.
We were disciplined. I bet coaches, and we can talk about this maybe later, but I often wonder in the minds of coaches that put their time in, that coached against you, Coach Schmidt, at that time, how frustrating they were. Because we didn't cheat on defense. We didn't blitz very much. But you played the numbers game. You know, you taught me early on in my coaching career, you know, you put the piece of paper and you go count this side of the center. Move the piece of paper over, you said count this side of the center. If you have if you equal the numbers up, that's all you gotta care about. And that's something that's always valuable to this day yet, even when we talk about that.
And honestly, we look at that the same way offensively, because if we have equal numbers, we feel our guys are going to be tougher than their guys.
Absolutely.
And you were thinking the exact same thing on the defensive side.
Guarantee those coaches were very frustrated because coaches great at taking away what they love to do the best. That was your number one thing. You would take away their best plays.
You tried to.
Yeah.
Yeah, tried to. Boy, when you couldn't do it, you were in trouble, though, Toby.
Get that? There's a few games where we walked over to each other. Like, get going on defense.
Yeah.
Don't get going on offense. I don't know. One of us got to get going.
That's gonna happen, and sometimes it's just better than
That's
you.
right.
And that's ultimately
right,
sometimes that's the frustrating part of coaching.
You know,
Like-
I've never really said this before, I don't think anyway, but I learned as much offensive line coaching from Coach Schmidt as probably the next best one for that would have been Wayne Hensel. Just in our conversations and just the way you did it defensively, I would see it from the opposite side. And we talk so many times, but I learned, especially my younger years, I learned as much offensive line play from you as I did from Wayne Hensel. And you guys were kind of from that same school, the same way of doing things, you know. Yeah. So once again, thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
Coach,
You're welcome.
Coach, I've got 2 years that are probably two of the most frustrating times. I mean, there's a few times, but there's 2 years that are probably my most frustrating times of walking off the field at the end of the year. And I want to see if they compare anywhere close to you. 02 and 98. Walking off the field. Klink senior year and Brad Lupkus' senior year.
Tough years.
Tough years.
That night, God, I even thought we were pretty good in 98, and I usually didn't think we were good.
Yeah.
And like Curtis said, I didn't realize that we lost 9 defensive starters and played the way we did in 99.
Yeah.
But
And 02 was a tough one to walk off the field. We were the best team in the state besides the team that knocked us off that year.
And I'm not
Over
convinced they
at
were.
Over at
I'm
Emmitsburg.
not,
like I said, and we talked about that before,
Yeah,
I felt that was my fault. We're not disciplined in the secondary well enough. And Dwayne talks about a block, but and then the year before, Toby, we got beat 7-6.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right here, and I remember they completed a short pass, and it popped it. One of our secondary guys stuck the guy, and the ball popped in the air, and here comes the tight end, catches and goes 40 yards for a touchdown.
Yep.
And then one of our linebackers, Mike Klinkenberg, got the 50-yard line, makes a tackle, the ball bounces, he picks up and scores, and there's 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and we missed a kick.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
But you remember those.
Yeah.
And I remember then talking to you, and Emmitsburg goes over, and what did 24-0, 35-0, the 2 semifinal games 2 years
yeah,
ago.
then it was like 40 points
So,
for
the championship game
Had been played.
had been played.
Have been played, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Wow.
Well, Coach, I'll ask you first, Coach Schmidt, and I'm gonna go Coach Van Berkum next. But what's the hardest part of coaching? Well, throughout all your years of coaching, what's the hardest part of coaching?
Oh, golly, that's pretty easy. Taking your family time that you got to cheat on. Have an understanding wife and family. I think if you don't have that, I don't think you mentally can do the job you want to do. And then, the time element, I always thought we had at the most 2.5 hours from Monday through Thursday practice for defense, and probably 2.5, 3 hours for offense, something like that. And the time element, you couldn't waste any time. I mean, And I remember the last few years when we went from group to group, hustle, sprint to that next group. Well, one of the things we had to do is, after I retired from coaching, I don't wear a watch anymore, but boy, when you coached, you had to watch that time. I thought the hardest thing was the time element. You were strapped in time. Yeah, I don't care if you're coaching offense, defense, head coach, special teams, whatever it was, boy, that time element.
Yeah. Gary?
I would say mine would be in the locker room after the last game.
Yeah.
Saying goodbye to the seniors.
Yeah.
I'll, no matter where it was, it just, I remember at Emmitsburg, Mike Klinkenberg standing there, and I walked over to him, and I've never seen a kid so heartbroken in his life. And you feel like you kind of failed the kids, that you should have done something a little different. And, that we should all go out, and the second part for me, the hardest part was retiring or leaving.
Walking away.
Because I've got family that is still coaching. And that's tough.
Like somebody asked me that a while back, and Coach Cruz and I talked about it in my office, and somebody asked me the same question, like, what's the hardest part of coaching? And they're like, oh, it's got to be parents. And, and honestly, for me, the hardest part of coaching was watching kids get hurt. The injury factor for me, is by far the hardest thing you can.
Always seemed to happen to the good kids, too. What you call the good kids that didn't deserve this.
And just watching them, if it's the first game of the year, if it's preseason, they sit there and they watch the season. And for me, that's the hardest part. So that's why the question was asked to you guys, because it's one of those things that, coaching has a lot of ups, but the downs are the downs, and we all know that. So it's a lot of time that we spend with those kids, like you said, Coach, and like you said, preparing for them. But Coach Schmidt, I'll start with you. If you had one piece of advice for coaches coming in today's age, what would be your one piece of advice to young coaches?
You got to love what you're doing. I know they use this all a lot, but I never worked a day in my life. I loved what I was doing. I loved teaching. I loved coaching. And I'm a poor person to ask, because I think if you out-prepare that other coach, you got a chance to win. And you got to have so many tangibles. You got to have a great staff around you. We have a community that football's important to. You walk down the street July 3rd and someone comes up, how's the football team going to be coached next year?
One in either way.
Yeah. And I think it builds on you as a coach that I got a responsibility to this school, to these kids, and do the best job I can do. I got to do a better job than the best job I can do. And I think that's why we got so much on it. We got such good kids that give us that.
Absolutely.
And boy, that's what it takes. And the other teams got it too, so.
Coach Van Berkum?
Well, I kind of agree with what you said, but I'm going to look at Mitch right now, because I had the opportunity to coach him and coach with him. Enjoy it, because before you know it, you're going to be sitting in my chair. It's over before you know it.
Yeah.
I mean, enjoy the family that you make with coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, boy, Friday nights are hard to go home to my house and sit with Kathy instead of. Well, I love my wife. Let me backtrack a little bit. But
it's really going to be home fun tonight.
With Jill and Jan, and just sitting at Toby's house on a Friday night. I mean, there were times, we're trying to, hey, we got some tape, let's break down, for playoffs. what we figure our salary was a few years, like
27 cents.
20 cents an hour. Love it. I do it every year, but just enjoy it while you can, because it's over before you know it.
Curtis, I got to throw something in with Coach Lorenzen here and Coach Null. I was 66, 8.5 months old when I retired, and I thought that was probably too young, but that's it. And I keep thinking how much I learned the last 20 years I coached. And I always wondered if Coach Null and Coach Lorenzen had coached for 15 more years each or 10 more years each. Jesus, look at the job he did. I don't blame him. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying probably I was just a slow learner. It took me till 40s, 50s, and 60s to get things out. But I always wondered if those guys had continued to be the coaches.
I can relate what you're saying, Coach. These last 5-6 years, I've learned more football in the last 5 or 6 years than I have the previous 25 or 30 years, whatever before that.
I can believe that.
I really, really understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I really do. And thank God I get to work with the people I do.
It's like someone coming to your house to work on something and dumbing me. I always say, I hope you're not a rookie. I can't fix a thing, so if we got a plumber or electrician, I don't want a rookie. I want someone with experience there. And I guess all this wonderful experience Toby and Dick had, wow. And I got to say another thing, too. I wonder how many times someone called Toby on the phone and told him what a lousy job, Dwayne Postma, Greg Schmidt, you ought to get rid of those guys.
Yeah.
And he swallowed it, put up with us, and kept us, I know those things had to happen because I was the head coach. I know what it's like to get the phone chewed out, And
Well, that's one of the greatest things, and I learned that from Dick Null when I became assistant with him, and all you guys know that. There's one thing, when you become a CLGLR football coach, you got each other's backs, and you always have each other's backs until the day you die. And I think these guys know it, you know it, but yeah, it doesn't matter. Blood's thicker than right when as far as comes to CLGLR football coaches, and we all got each other's backs, and we always will, and we always totally believe in what everybody has always done because we've always done it the right way.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm just lucky enough, Tobe, that I took over, or you got out, I took over, whatever, but I still have you. We still there. Is there a day of the year we don't talk, Tobe?
No, I cherish the moments that I walk into your office and talk to you guys and stuff every day.
And that's for me. It's like people don't know how lucky I am to still have the people that have been around for long times or perspectives. Or there's times that we struggle and the goods and the bads, and I walk up to the weight room and I still get to see Tobe every day, and he he can tell me things I don't want to hear sometimes, and tell me things I need to hear sometimes, and other times he pats me in the back and says that's the way life is, and it's a big part of me, and I appreciate that, and I think that's what we're kind of talking about in the fact of because the coaching world is a small world. You can only rely and really trust the people within that staff that I go through the same struggles every day that we all experience.
And along the same line, Coach, there's during the season especially, there's not a week goes by where I call it, it's probably because I do it, because I'm the oldest one, I guess, but there's not a week goes by where we don't bring up, or I don't bring up, or somebody doesn't bring up something about Greg Schmidt, what he would have done, or how he would have done it, a reminder, or how Dick Null would have done it. Now we bring the same thing up with Tobe as well. So those are things the experience that we've all had in this program, especially the guys that are here tonight as coaches, it's incredible what we can draw on from our experience being part of this program for all these years. Go back to those years of experience again. Yeah. It's wonderful. It really is.
Yeah, we're very lucky. We're very fortunate. That's all to it. Keep moving here. We're going to talk, Coach. During your career, was there ever a time when you felt like you wanted to get out of coaching?
Never.
Never.
No. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I loved it. No. Never, Curtis. Captain Curtis, I was called him.
Yep.
You've always been
It
Captain Curtis.
never entered my mind
That's awesome.
until all of a sudden I did. I left, but
I was fortunate in the fact that when you retired from teaching, we were able to continue you coaching. And if some of these people don't know out here in Radio Land that, you moved to Sioux City, but you would come up and spend your falls living in Rock Rapids at a variety of places.
Yeah.
What are your places? You remind everybody where you were at when you came back and lived just during the football season in Rock Rapids.
I think the first year I lived with Bev and Dave Sieperda, and then the second year, Ken Keel had an old house he bought.
On the corner.
Yep.
Next door.
Right next door
Next
to
door
Ken.
to him.
Okay.
Yeah, on the corner.
Ooh, that was. And then I stayed at the Catholic Church parsonage, and that was the best place.
Then you had a little glow around you all the time.
But Coach Schmidt,
No.
did you stay in?
And then the last year, right, she taught school. Pat Wiener, we got married then.
Yep, she got married,
that's
moved
right.
out of town, and you
That's
got
right.
that house.
That's what I was
I lived in
Yeah.
that house the last year
Yeah.
in 2008, because I remember Kurt's coming over and hooking up my TV and VCR for me.
Yeah.
I loved it because I would go to coaches' meetings at our district meetings and stuff, and I would tell these guys about Coach Schmidt that I get him to come and live in Rock Rapids during the football season, and these coaches would look at me like, "You got to be kidding me! You actually get that guy to do that?"
Yeah,
throughout?
yeah.
And Mitch and I laugh about it all the time. I drive by at lunch, and when you were staying at the Catholic Church, and his mom was working up there as a secretary, and you'd be outside, and I'd stop and talk to you, and you'd be in the middle of your thinking of what you're going to do and this and that, and then that would go through that whole day, and then by the end of the day, you probably went and talked to Sandy a little bit, but you checked in with her every once in a while, but that was so special that you were able to for Jan to let you come and be able to spend your falls
Thanks,
here.
Jan.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Jan, because it was truly special, and it kind of almost got to be kind of like a cult thing on where you were at and where's Schmitty living this year? Where's he gonna live? It's like this. I remember Snyder and I painting. We shingled that house of Ken Keel's there, and you were ready to go in that one, and we'd always find this or that for you, but it was so cool that you were that committed to Central Lyon Georgia Little Rock football that you wanted to spend part of your year up there. That was so unique.
If you ask Jen, I think she'll agree. We agreed on this because I wasn't crazy about moving. But, yes, dear, anyway. So if you ask her, she'll say, well, I thought he'd do it for a couple of years. And, well, what was it?
Eight
years. 8 years.
8 years, something like that. And
Yep.
Never know.
8 or 9 years. That was awesome.
But it really was
It was cool.
Wonderful experience.
It was.
Yeah, that's fun. Some fun years there. Moving on, finishing up here in a little bit here, but Coach Schmidt, to you, what did it mean to be part of this program?
Well, it was just wonderful. It was like a unique family that is probably closer than your regular family as far as getting along and doing things together, agreeing, disagreeing, working. It was truly a blessing for me. I'll treasure it to my dying day. It was really something. And such wonderful people to work and such good athletes we had to work with, that it just means a lot. It still does to this day. It's very, very touching. I enjoyed it. I loved it. And I had good support. My wife, like I said, put up with me all those years. And And I just thought about football. Probably ignored her, I don't know, but it worked out.
Yeah, and I think all of us sitting here, the way we coach this day is a big part of what you brought to our program, and especially to me. And I can speak from my half, but I know defensively from even Coach Lupkus, Coach Van Beek to this day, the discipline factor, the accountability factor, the preparation, exactly.
Yeah.
It's no matter. You wonder how long that will carry on, because it's been such a huge impact in our lives and the way we coach. And like Coach Postman said earlier, we still talk about a lot of what Coach Schmidt do and how would Coach Schmidt line up, and is the accountability there. And so for us, and then that's talk to the guys after we're done here, but it's still the same, and that's what's awesome. That's for you, like tomorrow when you wake up, you can realize, man, you made a huge impact, not only on me personally, but as a football coach in our football program, and that's a big deal.
Thank you.
And anytime I was interviewed towards the end of my career, and they asked me about coaching at Central Lyon, George Little Rock, I always said 98% of my coaching I learned from Dick Null and Greg Schmidt, and I'm guessing, I love Dick to death, but probably more of that percentage falls on Greg Schmidt. And you were always my assistant, but the things I learned from you made me a better head coach. And I always will appreciate that. And I've talked to Curtis about that numerous times. And I've talked to Dewey about that numerous times. But yeah, the things I learned from you are invaluable, either on the field or off the field. But those are things that carried me through my coaching career and will carry me through everything throughout my life too. And I appreciate that.
And frankly, Coach, it's on us, the current staff, to make sure. And we don't know who, Mitch is a pretty young guy, I guess, on our staff, Grant. But it's important for us to make sure that continues to carry on into the next generation of CLGLR football coaches. Exactly. Because it's invaluable what you gave us.
And this old boy sitting on the other side of me, Terry Van Berkum.
Before you start, let's ask Terry the same question.
Yeah.
What's it mean to you to be part of this program, Terry?
I've been blessed. I mean, I've had a wife that supported me, and I made great friends. I see former players. I run into them. It's just, I've coached with guys. We've argued on the sideline. We've yelled at each other on the sideline. But if there was a fist fight, I know everybody would have our backs. Yeah. I mean, Keith and I have coached probably, I don't know how many games we've gone together. And there were times where he would yell at me and I'd be yelling at him at a freshman JV game. And you know what? But on the ride home of the bus, we'd be laughing. And, and we just, I feel blessed that my only regret is I wish I had another 27 more years,
Yeah, that's
time for the young bucks to take over,
Yeah.
Yeah. Curtis, you and I and Jeff talked about the other day.
We did.
How important, and I jokingly began calling you the quality control coach. And how many, you were a great special teams coach for us, but that plus the fact how important a quality control coach is. And when I say quality control coach, all those things that you don't realize that you got to do in a normal season, and how hard those can be for a head coach to do, and how much time they take and things like that, and how you just take for granted that stuff until it's stuck on your lap. This guy took over all those things for me and was huge in that aspect, and it just made life so easier for me to be able to coach and be able to be the head coach and do things like that. But Terry, the things you did for this program, all those kids are all like, oh yeah, Coach Van Berkum, he got after me pretty good, but they understood how important you were to all that stuff that went on. So hats off to you, buddy. That was huge on that, because quality control coach is kind of minor compared to what you really actually did.
And if I didn't like the Whoppers that you lined up for us after the game, or the Big Macs, Toby would say, "Go bitch to Terry about it. Don't bitch to me."
Exactly.
I'll never forget the first time we stopped at Sioux City. I got a heck of a deal on. Everybody got a double quarter-pound cheeseburger, and they got
Double
two
quarter
of them.
That's a half a pound of beef.
And they got 2 of them. Postma was happy.
Nobody that can swing a deal better than Terry.
No, Terry, there's no doubt. We talk about it this day. There's a big part. That's intangible of coaching that nobody thinks about, but it's the ordering the sweatshirts. It's the locker room management. It's the pad management. It's I forgot my jersey and home management. And you took care of it, and I never appreciated it when I coached you, Terry, because you know why? I didn't know what the hell you did. And that fact. No. And then I take over as head coach, and you and Toby get out. Now guess what? I know what the hell you did. And and those are things like, for me, it's a big deal. And Coach Cruz and I talk about it often. And we now even got an athletic trainer to tape. So we're really
Jeez, you guys got
one day you chewed my ass, but because I was playing with your whistle between my toes, I was taping. But you didn't like that so much. But that's all right.
I think I did tape it a little tighter that day.
Yeah, you probably did. But again, it's a lot of intangibles. And we talk about the history of CLGLR football, and there's no more. Really, the 3 people sitting here, 4 people. I always lump Dewey into, because he still coaches with us. So, but the 4 people sitting here is the rock of CLGLR football, and we're just lucky enough to know you. I was lucky enough to come back to be part of it. So.
Well, it's so cool. I feel like as I'm sitting here tonight, I'm thinking to myself, we probably should have just had this in my living room at my house.
Yeah. Well, we
had one of the wives bring the food and stuff, because that's basically what it was.
Well, we did.
But I'm glad we're included our boys, because we got a lot of boys out here that definitely that made us what we are.
But
that's why we're doing it now.
Yeah,
the podcast.
right.
We did that for so many years, as sit down and talk.
Exactly.
We've gone about 2 hours now, and I feel like there's another 2 hours left.
Oh my God! It seems like 5 minutes when I get out here.
Yeah. In fact, this last year, Coach Schmidt stopped by the school, and it was in Coach Lorenz's office, and he came down and got me. He's like, "Hey, Coach Schmidt's here," and I don't care what I was doing. I run upstairs, and I think we ended up talking for like an hour and 15 minutes. It felt like 5 minutes, Coach.
Yep.
Because it was just boom, boom. You just
football,
talk.
football, more football.
Yeah,
there we go.
And it's just it's so easy to talk, and so number one, I appreciate you coming up here today,
Yes,
Coach.
I do too,
and I know
very
it's not. I got you out of your comfort zone. I know you don't love doing this, but I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and I know that everybody that's listening appreciates it.
I got to laugh about this quick. Do you remember after we won the 06 championship, they had you and I on KMEG TV and an interview on TV?
Yeah.
That was the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my life. You loved it, I think, but I hated it.
I wouldn't like that.
Hey, Coach Schmidt, who was the MVP of that championship team? You remember?
Defense.
I think the Central Line defense was.
Wasn't
got
it?
it.
The whole defense, wasn't it? Yep.
You got it.
Yeah.
And that included you, the man, the guy that called the plays,
players
prepared the
predicted,
team. That's what it was all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, should just call it Coach Schmidt defense, because that's really what it was about.
That's right. That's right.
And so, again, I thank you for joining us tonight, Coach. Coach Van Berkum, thank you for coming in and being part of it. And I know you guys got to get back to Sioux City, but ultimately we thought about this multiple times, and we're just glad that we were able to get together tonight and do this. And so, this is our final episode of our Season 2 podcast. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CLGLR Football. Again, Kevin DeBrian's going to make sure we get a good tip tonight. Make sure our touchdown club and our quarterback club is in good hands. So I really appreciate Kevin showing up tonight. And thank you guys for showing up. And, again, sitting down for 2 hours. I felt like 5 minutes. we'll probably continue after we're done here.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll end our podcast tonight, and from there we'll go on. So thanks.
Go
again.
Lions.
Thank you, guys.
We'll be back again soon, but in the meantime, please rate, review, and subscribe. Tell your friends about our podcast, as we are now available on YouTube, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And of course, follow us on social. We are at CLGLR Football on Twitter and Instagram. Or you can contact us by emailing clglrfb@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and go Lions!